On this beautiful, we thought we would get snow kind of day. Got tricked up a little bit.
Big nothing.
Big nothing almost. Up in the mountain, we got a couple big flurries and a little bit on the ground, but nothing to be excited about maybe. So it's all good. It's all good. So good to see everybody today on this beautiful day. So ready?
Let's go.
Let's go.
In 3, 2, and 1.
Hey folks, welcome back to your Frederick Real Estate Update. I am Darren Ahern, bringing you 20 years of experience here, and I am licensed in Maryland and Pennsylvania, helping hundreds and hundreds of families reach their goals and dreams. And I also have with me the man with all the money over in that vault at Presidential Bank Mortgage, Mr.
Terry Kernan.
Hey buddy, how we doing?
Good. How are you?
All right, we're deep into the winter. We thought we were going to get a bunch of snow, and it was a fake news.
That seems to be what's going on.
That's okay, though. We'll take it for now, I guess. For anybody that doesn't like snow, you're probably pretty happy. But I'd like to have at least one big one. One big white one.
Yeah. And I've said it before. As Mary Susan always says, if you're going to give me the cold, give me the snow to go with it. So.
That's it. So, lots to talk about. We have, I don't know about you, but boy, oh boy, I've gotten inundated more than ever before with a lot of questions and ideas and clients that are really thinking about, lots of questions about real estate market, about everything else and how it ties into everything. So let's get right into it. I'm going to do the numbers really quick. Actives 312. That's new and existing.
That's new and existing.
Yeah.
How many's new construction?
New construction right now is 148. We're down a little bit. We've been hovering around 155, 165. We're at 148. In fact, I will be tomorrow showing 2 over at Ren Quarters, 2 brand new, finished, ready to go, settle, 30 days, move right on in. And that's really good. I have a buyer that's doing all cash, and they're about a $500,000 budget. And they're ready to go. And so this is nice. Over at Ren Quarters, I got to think about that one. I can't remember off the top of my head because I'm thinking of the preserves at Tuscarora. We're going there. And there's a few other builders and such that we're dealing with as well. So we're looking into. So they had just literally sent that on over to me. And I thought that's really cool that there's 2 ready to go. So
awesome. Well, we missed you last week. And we had Danielle Adams and Mike Courier on. And we talked all about new construction. We talked about the builder show, which I am going to this coming week. I'll be in Vegas all week, exploring the builder show and kind of enjoying it. So it was a good show last week, and we missed you.
Yeah, sorry about that I was away, everybody. I hope you guys tuned in. If you didn't, you go on WFMD.com in the drop down menu. And you can check that all out and everything from there. So that has all the stuff from last week's show. And I do want to hear a little bit more what were some of the highlights and things that they shared, because I have a confession to make. I have not been able to listen to that yet. So resales 165. The average median price is at 478. So we have seen that come down from about 505 was the average high. So we're at 478, so we are definitely starting to see values trickle down a little bit in conjunction with these higher interest rates. So coming soon is at 41, pending under contracts is 451, sold in the last 30 days, 199. That is something.
That is a low number.
Yep,
that was hovering around 300.
Yeah, so it's been really low last 30 days. Average time on the market is 30 days and 482 sale price of those averages. And so even since then, we have seen those trickle down just a little bit. And the big number we like to talk about that the public needs to understand and know how vital this number is 97.8% list to purchase price. And so we were at 101.5 at the height of the fastest growing market we've ever seen in the history of real estate. And this is when people were literally offering $10, $20, $30, $50,000 over asking price to get into the home. And now we are seeing the mass majority of homes, probably about 80% of them, they are receiving less than asking price. There's 2 reasons for that, Terry. Number one, we have about 50% of all sellers that have already made a price adjustment to try to stay ahead of the market. And number 2, in the other parts of the market of actives is when they do receive an offer, we're seeing an overwhelming amount, almost nearly 75%, that are receiving just one offer and no longer multiple offers. So the good news is in certain price points and certain segments of the market, we are seeing about 25% of sellers still receive multiple offers. But we're not talking about 5 and 10 offers. We're talking about 2, maybe 3 offers, which is the most advantageous position to be in as a seller. And if you go back 2 programs ago, I have already explained about how sellers, how they can get into the best position to get that, which translates into the highest price and terms and conditions to still be in the driver's seat, not find yourself in the passenger seat of the real estate market.
Interesting.
All right. So those are the numbers. 97.8. Remember, I told you I don't really like to panic about that number unless it drops below 95%. So if we get below 95%, that would be, I would believe that would be almost a definitive indicator that we are now entering a completely balanced market, if not a buyer's market at that point.
Yes. And I don't think that that's going to happen, just based on what I'm seeing with the demand, with the phone calls, with the get me qualified, let's see what you got out there, let's see what we can buy, let's see. And it is sticker shock for a lot of them, but the demand is there. Working with a young couple, and they had multiple offers on a townhouse in Northern Virginia. They came down to the first and second place. They were, it was kind of a tie ball game, and they said, forget it, we want this. We don't want to do this again, so they waived the appraisal, which I have not seen in 4 months.
It's been a while.
4 or 5 months. So what I'm seeing on my end is the demand is pumping up.
It is. It's picking up a little bit. The only 2 factors I can think of in my mind, Terry, that really stand out that could mess that number up, that could cause that number to go down further, would be a very large segment of sellers that, number one, overprice their home. They're missing the market, if you will. That's definitely the first indicator. And the second one that could cause that number to go down even further would be more inventory. If we got an enormous amount of inventory that started to begin to outpace buyer demand, that would definitely cause buyers to have more selection, which will cause less multiple offers, which will cause that number to probably decrease a little bit. Those are the only 2 factors I can think of that would affect that number downward.
Correct. Do you see a large amount of homes possibly coming on the market?
No.
There's no short sales. There's no foreclosures. Right?
No, the distressed market is still 1% or less of our entire market. Until that number gets to about 4 or 5%, there's no indicators that that's looking like that's going to happen. I haven't heard anything in the news or in the banking world of your side that are seeing a lot more non-performing assets of homes that are now becoming more delinquent. I have not looked up in a long, long time how many homeowners are delinquent by 60, 90 days plus, because 30 days late is just 30 days late. That's not a big number. You start hitting 60 and 90 days plus delinquency. Now you're starting to run through list pens. You're starting to get a lot more notices from your bank and servicer about you're delinquent on your loans, and therefore you're heading towards now a foreclosure situation. So I don't know what that number is. That's something maybe we can look up, because I do believe that number is going to rise. And the primary thing that is going to cause that number of distressed properties to start to go up is no doubt job loss. And once we see more significant job loss take place, sellers are going to now be in a position, homeowners are going to be in a position of job loss to do 2 things ultimately. They're either going to need to find another job within 30 or 60 days very rapidly within their industry, or something of that nature that can pay their mortgage, or they're going to find themselves late, which is probably going to cost the mass majority of them to want to go ahead and get their home sold, take their equity and money off the table, and go ahead and try to scramble and find something to rent, especially if they have enough cash reserves with the sale of their property that they could easily pay 1 or 2 years of rent practically in cash up front, which will be probably a pretty prevalent factor to be able to do if somebody finds themselves in that situation. Obviously, the biggest thing we don't want to see is job loss, because job loss is the nasty domino that starts to really, really, truly create a bad environment for the real estate market.
And it starts with the R word, recession.
Yes.
So I did a pre-qual letter, pre-approval letter for a customer that I've been working with for a while, and they just put an offer on a house that is a short sale. And I tried to think about the last time I did an offer letter on a short sale.
Okay.
And it was well before COVID. It was years before COVID. So I know you said it's 1% of the distressed market, but I'm sitting here thinking, wow, what really put them in this situation that they're in a short sale. So if we get the offer, I can't give addresses and do all that, but I can do a little bit of research and kind of see, what's causing something like this. But it's in this area, and it's a short sale, and I haven't written on one of those in years, so it's interesting. Part of what I think that we're starting to see is a stress with is people are starting to accumulate. So the first thing, if there's a job loss, you live off of credit cards.
Yes.
You live off of savings first.
Savings, credit cards, home loans.
Then you go to credit cards, and we're going to start seeing a little stress factor here, because people are starting to rebuild that credit card debt. Okay, they're starting to borrow more and more, and they are not in a situation to refinance. Do they have the equity? Yes, but they don't have the rate to make sense to refi.
Right. Yeah.
So continue to see that, but I thought it was interesting that I just had my first short sale offer in 7-8 years maybe.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I hope, Terry, that we don't have to start to expand on this subject within our program, because it's never fun to talk about foreclosure and short sales and how they work. Real quick, in 20 seconds, a short sale is basically the seller still legally owns their home. It just means they're in a negative equity position where they owe more than the home is actually worth in that market time. And a lot of people, of course, in the environment that we've experienced in the last 3 years, where we've had nearly 30% plus appreciation of home values, anyone in their right minds can think logically, how in the world could that ever happen to a homeowner? And the only thing I can think of is somebody must have refinanced, or they took out a second loan, a HELOC loan, and have maxed that out. And so now, therefore, they have a first mortgage, and now they have a junior lien following behind it, where now that amount of money to pay off those two loans combined is basically, by the time you add in closing costs and all the other things and factors like that, they're now upside down. They owe more than the house is actually worth at the end of the day. So that's why I've always been a big proponent of saying, hey, look, I know there's some guidelines that you guys have as far as refinancing and how much equity you can actually leverage and take out of your property. But I'll tell you, this whole cash out thing could be a really nasty scenario, because it's the number one thing, Terry, that I find put people in a really bad financial position whenever they've had to live off the ATM equity of their home, if you will. That's an idea that you really never want to engage in doing whatsoever. So, all right, what are some of the things that's happened in the mortgage world? And also, if you could, please take a minute, update me. What were some of the highlights from the program last week with the Builder Association stuff? What's going on in that factor? Because that's something that's important information to know going forward.
Yeah, so Mike Courier's with the National Association of Home Builders, great guy, very good friend, and he is the vice president of he runs the convention, okay? So he's got a pretty good pulse on what's going on, because, and he said that the convention is going to be very, very big this year, because it was, last year was a good year, everything's been good. But they're seeing a big slowdown nationwide.
Yep.
And that slowdown is going to continue into 2023. But he said that the feeling is, in the forecasting that's going on, is it's going to be back in 2024. It's going to coincide with lower rates. It's going to coincide with the presidential election. And their feeling is kind of what I've been preaching for the last 6-8 months, is that even though rates are going up, things are going to get better in 2024. Into 2023. So their economists basically are following the same guides or the same beliefs that most of the real estate mortgage is believing as well. The other thing we talked about was the show that's happening next week, which I'm going out to. And then Danny Adams, she talked about our show that we're having here. And that's St. Patrick's Day weekend. That's the 18th and 19th. It's a great show. Open to the public. We really need the public support, but there's a lot of great things there. There's usually celebrities there. I know John Riggins has been there for the last 3 years, and there's usually a ex-Redskin or two.
Where's that at? That's the home show here in Frederick.
That's the home show. It's going to be in 6 total buildings out at the fairgrounds.
Yep, the fairgrounds, and that'll be in March.
And it's in March, and it's a great show. We'll be there. We're always there. And it's just not builders, but there's a lot of contractors. There's a lot of, if you want to do anything to your home, that's where you want to go.
Yeah, that'll be a really
Great
good
show.
It's always fun out there. So, all right, what else? Go ahead.
And then what we're seeing in the market is kind of a lot of phone calls, a lot of pre-qualifying. But here's what you need to know, and this is very, very important, is we've seen rates come down. We've seen them get under control. We've seen them calm down, okay? At one point we're at 7.25%. At that 7.25% range, my phone stopped ringing. Since January 3rd, it has not stopped ringing, okay? So we're seeing it, but where are the rates? Rates are down around 6% now. 6.25%, it all depends on how much you're putting down. It all depends on credit scores. We all know that, but we're in the low sixes, if not 6%. You can even get into the fives if you're looking at a government loan like FHA or VA. So rates have come down. But when the Fed meets in the beginning of February, so next week, when the Fed meets, what we're going to see is they're going to raise the rates. The biggest thing that we're going to have to worry about is if they decide to go with a 0.5% hike in the prime rate.
Right.
The market has already figured in 0.25%.
Okay.
It's already factored it in. So when you hear the Feds raise rates again, and it's only 0.25%, then you can be rest assured that the interest rates that we have recovered and that we have gotten back to, and that has lit the fire under a lot of buyers, is going to be protected. Here's where we could see some volatility in the market, and I'm talking about the mortgage market, okay? I'm not talking about the stock market. We're already seeing tremendous volatility, but this, if they raise it 0.5 point, which I don't think that they can, I don't think that they should, but they might. There are some of the governors that are pulling for it, but going with 0.5 in February, and then when they meet in March doing 1/4, then that's going to create some volatility, and our rates are going to go up, okay? Does that mean lock in today? It means be very cautious. Now, they're definitely going to raise them 1/4, but if they pop in that extra 1/4, that 1/2, then we're going to see some definite turmoil in rates, and they're going to go back up a little bit, probably 1/4 point, get around 6.25, 6 3/8. But this, let me just be very, very clear. This bump that we're going to see from the Feds was factored in 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And we're factoring in 1/4.
Good.
Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. So listen, guys, all of our listeners out there.
Don't panic.
Yeah, nothing to panic about, but get with Terry.
Yeah,
get with Terry, and really go over a strong game plan and all that for where you need to be, because that's really more vital than ever before now. So Terry, some of the things as we finish up program today, people have asked a lot about is what are the most important things that our buyers and sellers need to be paying attention about the current environment of our market right now. So before submitting an offer on a home, this is something that's in my packet that just comes with a lot of experience. The last thing I ever want is for a buyer to ever be surprised by some piece of information that could have easily been researched and looked over before an offer even went into place. And that's something that's really, really serious. This is what separates experience and non-experience right here. Number one is location. What is near the home in the community? Power wires, neighbors, what are the amenities? What are the commute? What are all the different factors there that affect directly of ownership there and affect you with the how much you like that you're going to enjoy being in that particular area, wherever that may be. So that's the first thing I always really want to remind buyers to. I know it's one of these subjects where people say, well, no kidding, Darren, this is something that should just come already natural. No, you would be amazed at how many people after submit an offer, not with me, but I've heard of it, that have submitted an offer afterwards, and then they said, oh man, if I'd have known that community didn't have a swimming pool, I wouldn't have put an offer on there. I want one with a swimming pool. That's a problem because they're not building one in that community. So let's get you into a community that's going to be building a swimming pool, already has one or something of that nature. I've heard it from commuting, swimming pools, amenities. It could be like, hey, I didn't know, in the back of the property back here, in 5 more years, there's going to be 2,000 homes developed and a road coming on through. Yeah, that's important to kind of know about. That falls under the master plan and zoning for the county, that you want to call them up and find out what's going to be happening around the home I'm looking to purchase. I know you got a story. Here we go.
Well, the reason I'm chuckling is I live in Montgomery County. I live at the beginning of the ICC, the Inter-County Connector.
Yep.
It was on the books for decades.
Yeah.
Decades. And when they finally pushed it through, and when it finally reached the point where it was real, people that owned townhouses, single-family homes in neighborhoods that were actually, the ICC was going through or going right behind, and they were the ones that were complaining about it. And the question that was asked most was, did you know that this was coming? And most of the answers were, yes, I did. But it had been on the books so long that never thought it would happen.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, very important. Know what's happening in the future.
And there's situations, Terry, where somebody may be buying land or building a house or has an existing home somewhere, and then, it's let's say a farm's across the street, it's an ag preservation for the state of Maryland, and all of a sudden, what are the chances of this getting out of there and going to be built upon? Well, eventually at some point. And I tell people that. I said, look, you can't live here as if nothing's ever going to be built around you. You have to be able to be willing to know that there are going to be some changes in your environment of where you live, and expansion and all that stuff, especially the closer you live here to Frederick versus where I live up by Camp David, literally in the middle of nowhere. The only thing that we know that's going to expand is we're going to have more deer and more bear possibly up in our backyard. And that's about it, because we know pretty much the chances of a big development and things like that taking place in our backyard is pretty much slim to none. So you really have to be educated in knowing what's being proposed or what could be proposed down the road. The next big one is homeowners insurance. Terry, this is something I see a lot, guys. A lot of buyers, they don't go and find homeowners insurance until the home's under contract and we're 2 weeks from settlement. They go, oh yeah, I need to get homeowners insurance. The last thing you want to find out is if it's in a floodplain, there's been a fire, there's been something that's been claimed against the property, and the clue report that comes up, and now instead of having $1,000 or $1,500 premium to pay for insurance, now it's $3,000 and $4,000, and you freak out and you say, holy cow, I went out of the contract. It's going to cost me too much for for the premiums for having homeowner insurance, because I've already shopped around and nobody can do it less because of XYZ. And now that is not a contingency to get out of the contract. So guess what, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? You get to still buy the house with that in place. That's just how that works. And if somebody says, well, what if I don't? You're definitely going to lose your deposit, and the seller could potentially sue you for damages beyond having it off the market for a period of time that they didn't have another buyer in place now because you didn't do your due diligence, and you didn't have somebody like me as an agent that's telling you this is what you need to pay attention to.
Very, very, very good point. Flood insurance. Let's talk about that. You have to pay 1 year up front.
Yes.
It has to be escrowed.
Yes.
Know what you're getting into, please, because they redraw these flood maps.
Yep, the FEMA flood move.
And there's people that we just had a person that they were told by the seller and the seller's agent that it was in a floodplain, yes, and the flood insurance is about $700 or $800, between $700 and $800 a year. Borrower said, okay, that's fine. They signed the contract, went with. Turns out at $4,800 a year. The right direct waterfront.
Yep.
It's out of state. It's down in Mississippi, but it's on the Gulf. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. So you got to know this. So you have to know this. We don't want no surprises. The other one is taxes, Terry. Woo! This is a big one right now. The tax assessed values are being finalized and completed in Frederick County. And I don't know if you've taken a little gander at your tax bill, but there's a lot of people out there that, Terry, are not real thrilled with their new tax assessment and bill. Terry, I'm having people that are calling me that are realizing that their taxes are going to go up by up to 25%.
So I don't think that they can go up that high
if
they're because of the Homestead Act.
That's right, and that's what I will talk about.
The maximum it can go is only 10%.
Correct. Right. So therefore, that is a big factor. Whenever you purchase a home, the very first thing that you need to do is file and the homestead tax credit. You can go online. A lot of the title companies that I use for our buyers are very quick to give you the information that so you can go online and do it right away, but it also comes in the mail. And that's not a piece of paper that you want to throw into the trash and disregard. You want to go ahead and file that with all the information so that, like Terry said, the maximum amount that's capped with your tax assessed value is 10%, okay? So for somebody that their taxes have gone up 20, 25%, that is a huge red flag that you did not file that cap for the homestead credit. And now, of course, we get the idea that says, now what do we do? Go ahead.
So if you buy a second home, if you buy an investment property, those do not qualify. So when I bought a second home back in 2004, the taxes were minimal. It was $150 a month. They were $1,800. Well, the people had been living there for 25 years, and I was buying it as a second home, so I did not qualify for the Homestead Act. And even though I was in the business, even though I was in the mortgage business, I didn't think far enough ahead that when that new tax bill came out, the homestead was not there, and my taxes went from $1,800 to almost $4,000 a year.
Wow!
Because I bought a second home. So when you're buying a second home, or an investment property, that is a huge deal there. The other thing to take into consideration: anybody that's a disabled veteran out there, the state of Maryland, in most cases, depending on how much the disability and so forth, but you will get a tremendous break, if not totally wiped out your taxes.
There you go. So see,
think about that.
This is so important. This is the kind of stuff, Terry, that our listeners are realizing we're not going to hear most of the time out there, because this is real-time stuff that's happening. This is why we're bringing it to you the way it works. The next big thing is HOA, condo fees, and special assessments, okay? So HOA's condo, I just sold a condo down in Gaithersburg recently, and the transition from the time we were settling to when the new mortgage, and into January coming up here this month, the value of, the condo fees for the property, they were going up some. It wasn't a lot, but we made it be known. We had to legally make it known to the new buyer so that they were not going to be surprised when they saw their first installment for their condo fee bill. And they were going to say, hey, wait a minute, it was listed in the MLS and it was on the documents right away that it was $215 per month. Now it's going to $230. What happened here? So now that they've been notified and we've had that in writing and it's been put out there, no one can come back and say, we had no idea that this was going to go up a little bit. The big one as we finish up in the program today, Terry, is special assessments. This is something when I have somebody, now HOAs do not have special assessments. Only condominiums do. But there's communities that we deal with that are both. They are HOA and condo. You have two of them. So they're getting two sets of resale packets, two different fees, and all that stuff involved. The big thing is knowing about special assessments, and those can be administered at any given time and proposed in the association. So we're going to talk more about this. What are all the things that buyers absolutely must pay attention to so you do not get yourself in trouble when it comes to purchasing in this current environment that's changing, and also for buyers. So thanks so much for tuning in to your Frederick Real Estate Update. We will see you each and every Saturday here on WFMD. Take care now. Have a great weekend.